Hello.
We're back.
You can't get rid of us.
Many have tried.
Welcome to the third option. We are Rick and Judi Manis, and we are here with the final installment of our five-part series on
The
astonishment.
astonishment
Who
of
knew?
God.
Who knew you could do 5 episodes on
Well, really,
astonishment?
when you think about God's grace and love, it really is astonishing. There's an old song called Amazing Grace, and
Hmm.
amazing is another word for astonishment.
Hmm.
And what we've been saying, one of the things we've been saying is that if the grace you're living in is not amazing or it's not astonishing, there's more. And there's more to
Yeah.
see. And so in this last installment, we want to continue with something we got into in our last episode about some of the things that can keep us as Christians, as Christian
Hmm.
believers, keep us from being astonished. And
Well, we're
so
titling the message "Clipping the Christian
clipping Christian wings. A lot
Wings."
of us have maybe inadvertently had our wings clipped. And when you think of a bird in a cage, I'm thinking I had a friend that they had a bird. I'm sure it was a parakeet, and had it in a cage. And they, instead of just keeping the cage closed like a lot of them do, they would let the cage open and let the bird out, but they clipped its wings, which still has the same effect. It's not going to go anywhere. And birds are meant to fly. We heard somebody say recently that we're to live in bird houses, not bird cages. But a lot of times our Christian dogma can cage us up or
Mm-hmm.
clip our wings. And we want to talk about those things because we're supposed to be free. A bird is meant to fly. Bird is meant to be free, and it can go places, but it's going to be a bird no matter where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And
in
so a lot of
in in Galatians, I'm sorry, Paul said it is for freedom that Christ set us free. We
yeah,
were meant to be free.
for that purpose, he
Hmm.
certainly did not come to cage us up even more. He did not come to create another bird cage for us to
Hmm.
live in. He certainly didn't come to clip our wings. He came that we would be free. And he said, if you know the truth, you'll
Hmm.
be free indeed. Why? Because the truth is astonishing. And that astonishment will always, when we see how good God is in a way
Hmm.
that surprises us, it takes us into a bigger place
Hmm.
where there's more room to be free.
Do you think, though, that the intention, the good intention of creating a kind of bird cage for the Christian is we don't want you to fall
Mhm.
prey to self
Yeah.
destructive behavior. We don't want you to fall prey to teaching that's going to lead you into something negative. So we're going to protect
Mhm.
you here. In some senses, it's good, but then it becomes
Or
almost
try to keep you, yeah, and
suffocating.
trying to keep you safe is the motive. The problem is, I learned a long time ago that a religious spirit, is a spirit of fear. When I say religious spirit, I mean
Mm.
a religious mindset. It's a spirit of fear, and it's afraid that somebody's going to think something wrong, or say something wrong, or
Mm.
do something wrong. See, that's not a liberty spirit. That's not a spirit of liberty. Remember, Paul made this statement, and it's kind of a way he said, here's how you can recognize it. He says, for God did not give us that spirit of bondage again to fear. The way the Passion Translation says that he did not give us the spirit of religious bondage that leads us into the fear of never being good enough. But he didn't give us that. So Paul's saying, so if it's a spirit of bondage, a spirit that binds you, that causes you to fear,
Mhm.
and I can smell that fear a mile away. It seems I just
Mhm.
seem to be able to recognize it. But you can tell when people are afraid. They're saying things, teaching or preaching things because they're afraid of doing something wrong. A lot of ministries and there again, I don't want to be critical because I've done everything. I've been everything. I understand it. I don't really blame people. I think we come into it with the best intentions, but we can preach more against other Christian beliefs
Mhm.
than we are preaching about the grace and the love of God. And we're concerned that somebody might believe this about the end times, or believe that about the rapture or the not rapture, or the rupture,
The
or
rupture.
believe in that these are
Multi-thousand.
included and these are, or on the other side, these are excluded. There's all these different things. And the truth is, none of us know anything as we ought. As believers, what I've found is that there are certain things that we all enjoy and agree on and commune with each other on and celebrate together. And then there's a lot of other things that are, at the least, they're up for debate.
Mhm.
And the reason is because some people have seen things, experienced things that are so good that
Mhm.
you want to share it with other people. But like we said in the last episode, it might not fit the box that we have. Sometimes we can be afraid that somebody's going to get out of our box, and because all we can see is our box, and we think this is truth.
Mm.
And if you say something that goes out of that, that
Mhm.
is foreign to this, then there can be a fear
Yeah.
that's involved. And then if I'm in ministry that way, then I'll clip the wings of my people and saying, you can't go out there. You can't think that.
So I always thought that and I'm not sure I'm seeing the whole picture, but I've always thought like a minister or like a pastor's job is not to have their people come and sit with a blank stare and think whatever you're saying. Like, I trust this guy,
Mhm.
whatever he's saying, I'm going to think the same thing. It always seemed to me like the pastor's job is to preach what he or she believes, but then teach the people how to think for themselves, how to search out the scriptures, or how to have a relationship that is beyond just coming and listening and being told what to think. And I sometimes think that's why there's been such a downfall of these mega pastors, these pastors of mega churches having so much power and so much influence on people, like raising them up and, believing that they know something more than what you can know in your own relationship with God. I mean, I sometimes even feel uncomfortable when people are like, well, I've been reading this person and this person said this and that person said that. And I'm like, okay, that's all good. And I find it interesting too. But what is God saying to you personally? I mean, I guess God's speaking through other voices, but there's also your own
The
reflection.
ministry, Paul the apostle said,
Help
I
me with this.
have espoused you to Christ.
Yes.
And so that's what our job is. We want people to know God for themselves, know him intimately. It can be a scary thing because we're espousing them to someone that's much bigger than we are, that knows a whole lot more than we are, that has a whole lot more for them than what we can give them. And so we don't want to create a bird cage and keep them in our cage. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of ministries can do that. When you recognize that if the preaching is about, you're not allowed to think this, you can't believe that, that thinking is wrong, that thinking is wrong, that thing, if there's too much of that, there's a whole lot of that, rather than the preaching of the good news,
Mm-hmm.
which is astonishing. There
Mm-hmm.
again, it should continue, we should be continually blowing people's minds
Mm.
about their idea of God.
Yeah.
If we're doing that, we're getting closer to the real image of God than we've been before. And that's what we want to do. But
Mm-hmm.
the bird cage doesn't allow the astonishment. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot be astonished. Here's what you're allowed to know. And so we clip the wings of the bird and we say, you're going to stay right here because we've got it all right here. And then you don't get to be astonished anymore. That's why we're talking, we've got this series on astonishment right now because it's so important. That's where the growth is. If you're
So
not astonished by God, you haven't seen anything fresh about him in a while.
mhm. So if the bird cage is very confining, what would it be like to live in a bird house? Like, how would that be different?
That's a great
I mean,
question.
I'm serious. Like,
I
we
know.
don't want to just talk about what's wrong. We
Yeah.
want to
The
talk
bird
about
the bird house. Think about it. If you live in a bird house, where can you go? Anywhere.
you can come and go.
Doesn't it, just even thinking of that picture of a bird in a bird house, it's liberty, it's freedom, it's wide open spaces. And it was for freedom that we were set free. Jesus wanted to take us out of a bird cage and put us into a bird house, give
Mhm.
us a place to live where we could have freedom. He did not come to give us some kind of dogma that was going to create another cage for people. And we talked about last time how, because of these cages that are kind of built around us, there's peer pressure, There's prejudice in our doctrine, the way that we approach the Bible. We misinterpret the Bible so often in so many ways. We have all of these things
that are resisting
that, yeah, and they don't
astonishment.
allow us to have that freedom. Jesus told the Pharisees who had this bird cage, you have to live here, and if you don't, then you're out. And Jesus said, hypocrites, he says, you don't allow anybody else to enter the kingdom of heaven, and you don't go in yourself. This place of liberty, this place of freedom. How big do you think heaven is? It's got to be pretty big. It's not this confining place. Nobody's going to heaven and saying, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. You think that's what heaven is like? Really?
Like, don't.
Yeah, no, it's the place of absolute freedom. And just like a bird was meant to fly, when you clip its wings, you're taking away the very purpose that it was designed. And as humans, as the children of God, our purpose is to be able to experience and receive all of the goodness and the abundance and the life of God, which is astonishing. And so, it'd be great if we could see more of us letting go of that fear and letting people think, as you said, process, letting people find God, letting people venture. I like the scripture we talk about sometimes in Psalms 22, where David wrote, he said, I will fear no evil, for you are with me.
Psalms 23.
23, excuse me. I'll fear no evil because you're with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And I take that in a certain personal way when I read it. And I think of that, I will fear no evil. I will not fear that I'm going to become evil. I'm not going to fear that I'm going to do evil. I'm not going to fear that I'm going to think evil. Now, I can make mistakes. I can think wrong things. I can do wrong things, but I don't have to be afraid of it. I can still give myself that liberty. Why?
Because
Because
I trust Jesus to bring me.
yes, his rod and his staff.
staff.
His staff can pull me back in. And I've seen it happen. I've veered off this way and like, I wonder if that's it. And it's like, no, this is the way. Walk in.
If you're relying on him, you know you're safe. He's bringing you back. If you're relying on you, then you've got to create a cage for yourself because you can't trust yourself to not venture off.
And that fear, it comes from either not believing that God's able to do that in an individual, or possibly us knowing that we have not espoused people to Christ. We've espoused them to our dogma, and we know that our dogma, that there's no strength in holding them, so we've got to keep them in the cage of our dogma.
One thing I was thinking of is we weren't together at the time, but you had an experience and I had an experience when we were kind of daring to trust in the grace of God. And in a way, that was a moment in my life where I stepped outside my own cage, where I said to the Lord, are you sure? Because what if I go back to the way I was before? What if I don't want to live that old life? But I felt him drawing me to trust him. And it did feel like a jumping off a cliff, like,
Trusting.
oh my goodness, if you don't catch me, I'm going down. And I think only in jumping and risking trusting do you find out that he's got you. The rod and the staff are reliable. He's reliable. He's not going to let you go off into destruction.
It does risky because we are leaving that sense of security of having this little dogma that where we feel like we get it, we understand it.
Our light went off.
Yeah.
Here, let me just.
You gonna fix our light?
You go ahead.
Okay. Where we have our dogma, little tech difficulty here. We have our doctrine, and there's a sense of security about it because we can wrap our mind around it. But like Judi said, it gets us to where what God's Spirit is doing is he's drawing us toward love. For God is love, and that love is what's drawing us, and we're coming to this place of this beautiful perfection of love that all of us, including myself, know really very little about. But some of us have tasted and seen that the Lord is good. We have tasted that love, and we've been surprised by it. And like you were saying with that, oh, you're back. Like you were saying with that, you've tasted that grace. You saw that, and it looked too good to be true. It was astonishing. But you said, but if this is true, this is what I want to go for. But it better be true, because If not, I'm leaving the security of something that I thought before, but I have been surprised by this other thing that I see.
Mhm.
And you, as you said, you were drawn to that and you went into that and you tasted and saw that he was good, and you experienced the fruit of that. And
Mm.
it's those kind of things that we're talking about being surprised at
Mm.
his goodness. So we're being drawn into love, and that's where we're going. So in one way, we shouldn't be surprised that it's going to be more beautiful. It's going to be more about love. It's going to be more about mercy and grace, but we will be surprised at how beautiful it is and
Mhm.
how big it is.
Mhm.
And that's what happens.
And it also allows you to then trust the next thing. So, once you've had that experience and felt the fruit of taking that risk or trusting God in that way, you're more, I think, daring or willing to do that in the next place. And really, if you don't see fruit in it, then it probably isn't good, right? If you aren't seeing, you mentioned earlier about how it makes you feel inside, like when you start seeing people more graciously, your heart feels warm and big and good, and you like how that
Yeah,
feels. I'm not talking about relying on feelings, but I am saying like there is
a
a
good feeling
a
that comes with it.
goodness of growing, and you're like, wow, I like this. I feel more mature. I have some substance
The
to.
surprises of God's goodness and those revelations, they affect your heart, and you find yourself growing, and you notice it. You get surprised even at yourself that you extend grace in a
Mhm.
better and an easier way, and like you said, you like how that feels. You find yourself more merciful. You release people that once were hard to forgive, and you like how that feels.
Yeah.
We become more honoring of freedom than honoring control.
Yeah.
And I think religion honors control a lot. Jesus honors freedom. It was for
Mm.
freedom. How does Galatians 5:1? We've got it. It was for freedom that we were made free. Galatians 5:1, that Christ has set us free. So stand firm and do not let yourself be burdened again by the yoke of bondage. And so when we're talking about being astonished or surprised by God's
Mhm.
goodness, the reason we're surprised is because we're so used to being in the birdcage, and then you take those bars away. And that's the scary
Mhm.
thing that
Yeah.
you're talking about experiencing. Those bars are taken away, and like,
What?
what's going to keep me from being an ugly sinner?
Yeah. Could I fall and die? Like, could I just fall out and just crash to the ground?
See, that was my biggest fear was, without the bars, what's going to keep me in line? Because I
Mm.
thought that's what it was, because I was so used to the birdcage. I was so used to having parameters around me
Mhm.
that I had to live by, and I was working hard to do it. And then the birdcage leaves, and I'm like,
What do I do
well,
now?
and I'm like, what's going to keep me on the straight and narrow?
Yeah.
And I found out it was the freedom that I didn't even need to be on a straight and narrow. I was called to fly. I was
Mhm.
called to be free. So now, I experience more. I feel like it's more of a birdhouse than a bird cage, and I like the flying. And you know what? I'm still a bird. I didn't become a demon. I didn't become a snake.
Mhm.
I'm still a bird. I'm a new creation in Christ Jesus. His spirit living in us, empowering us with love and grace and mercy,
Mm.
and especially because we've seen it. And so it changes my heart for the better, and it's changing the world that I influence for the better.
That's so funny. Like when you're born from above, it's like you do become a new creation, but you're starting to realize I am a new creation. It's kind of the analogy of I'm flying, because you don't really see that you're a new creation until you're actually
Mhm.
kind of doing some things that you're like, oh, this is me flying.
Yeah.
This is me free. This is me. I was thinking of something recently. I've spoken a bit here and there, And I've been very nervous at times, especially I spoke recently at our home church, but I've always been so nervous that I'm going to say something theologically incorrect, or I'm going to, hurt someone or make them think the wrong thing. And I'm always like, please pray for me, please. But this last time I spoke, you prayed for the gift in me. It took away this pressure on
Off you.
me personally and let me trust that the Holy Spirit was the one,
The gift would work.
and that the gift would work, and that I might not say everything perfectly the way, I wanted to, but I'm trusting that this gift is going to make itself known. And there is a flying in it, in the sense that it's not safe. I'm just sticking to the ground and I have it all together. There is a bit of a wow, like, oh, and it's a soaring and a flying, and it is a good
The
experience.
feeling of freedom is so big,
Yeah.
and Jesus said so much about it. It was for freedom that Christ had made us free. He said, "If you'll know the truth, you'll be free indeed." He said first. He said, well, he said, if you know the truth will make you free. And then
Mhm.
some of the people, they were like, no, what do you
We
mean
don't.
free? We're already free. We're
Yeah.
not, let her think like, no, I'm talking about crazy free. I'm talking about free indeed. If the Son makes you free, then you'll be free
Free
indeed.
indeed.
You can fly. And those cage bars
Weren't they talking about
are,
Abraham?
well,
Like
yeah, they said because we're Abraham's children, but he said I'm talking about something
something.
way, way beyond that. But those bar cages are telling us what we can't be and what we can do and all that. And they think that's what's going to keep us
Safe.
safe. He didn't just come to enclose us so that we would be safe. He came to give us life so we could live. He came to take the bird from the cage and
Mm.
put it in a birdhouse. And we don't want ministries to try to catch that bird and cage it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so much of our religious dogma can do that. It's a lot of it based on fear, like we said, fear of somebody doing or thinking something wrong, or based on, or mixed with pride, just thinking like we know it.
Hmm.
Whatever it is that we think, that's the truth.
Mm.
And if you think outside of what I think, then that's not the truth. That's religious pride, and we all have it to varying degrees. It reminds me of a story, a skit actually I saw one time, and there were these two people that hadn't seen each other in a long time since college. And some years later, they run into each other on the street, and the guy's like, he calls her name, like, Lisa. And she's like, Eddie, and she's like, is that you? Yeah. Wow. I haven't seen you in so long. And they're hugging and they're like, wow, this is great. You look great. How you doing? Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm doing great. And she goes, oh, I like that T-shirt. He had a Jesus T-shirt on. He goes, are you a Christian? And he goes, he's him hawing and like, I like some of their beliefs. And she goes, well, I'm a Christian. He goes, you are, I am too. And then they're hugging again and they're all celebrating and like, wow, our names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. We're going to heaven. And then he's like, yeah, maybe we should get together. We could pray together. I said, oh, I love to pray. I said, I just love to intercede and pray in tongues and just pray in the Holy Ghost. And she goes, oh, you pray in tongues? I said, yeah, don't you? I said, well, no, I don't do that. So we really, he goes, oh, well, we need to get you praying in tongues. And she said, no, I don't really, I'm not interested in that. And like, well, how you gonna make it? How you gonna go to heaven? Like, I'll go to heaven. So, but you don't have the Spirit. And she's like, I got the Holy Spirit. And it's like, well, no, you don't. Like, they start arguing about it, and after a while, they're like, you know what? You were a lot better before you were a Christian. They end up walking away because they had different ways of being a Christian, and one had his cage, and the other was in their place. And the whole
Mm.
point of the story is that dogma, it encages us. Not only does it encage us, but it divides us.
Sorry.
Something's going on with our lights
Like,
here. Let's just let
leave
it
it.
go.
Okay.
We want to get people out of the cages, and
Yeah.
in the cage there's no astonishment. In the cage there's no surprises. In the cage you already know what you know. In the cage you already see what you see. And what you're probably doing in your study and in much of the teaching that you're receiving is that you're just validating what you already see and what you already know. And it makes us have a sense of security, like we really, really, really know this. What we want to do is we want you to let God surprise you. We want you to let God surprise you about how lovable you really are and how worthy of that love you really are. How much he really, really does love you and really does care, and how gracious he is to you, and how patient he is with you, and how gentle he is with you, and how understanding he is. He just gets gooder and gooder in your eyes, and you can keep being surprised, and you'll come into this blissful feeling of liberty
Mm.
and freedom that you don't need bars to keep you from going out and committing the most vile sin. What you find is the liberty to move into love. And that's where you get empowered. And that's what we want for everyone here. None of this teaching on astonishment was meant to try to change anybody's doctrine about any doctrine. It was meant for we want people to be surprised at the love and the goodness of God.
Thank you for joining us. We hope this has been an encouragement, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.